The ancient Greeks populated their myths with a vivid array of legendary creatures, each embodying fears, hopes, and mysteries of the world around them. These beings were not just decorative parts of mythology, they carried symbolic weight, teaching lessons, guarding sacred places, or testing the limits of heroes. Among the most iconic was the Hydra, a monstrous serpent with multiple heads. Dwelling in the swamps of Lerna, the Hydra was nearly impossible to kill. Cut off one head and two more grew back in its place. Its breath was lethal, its blood poisonous. Heracles, in one of his 12 labours, was tasked with slaying it. Only with the help of his nephew Iolaus did he manage to cauterize each neck after decapitation, preventing regeneration. The Hydra wasn't just a beast, it was a metaphor for overwhelming, multiplying problems, an enemy that punished brute force and demanded strategy. Another fearsome figure was the Chimera, a fire-breathing hybrid with the body of a lion, a goat's head sprouting from its back, and a serpent for a tail. The Chimera terrorized the land of Lycia until the hero Bellerophon, mounted on the winged horse Pegasus, struck it down with a lead-tipped spear. The creature's design was pure nightmare, a patchwork of predators, suggesting a terror that defied the natural order. Its defeat symbolized the triumph of courage and intellect over chaos and monstrosity. Medusa, perhaps the most famous of the Gorgons, had snakes for hair and a gaze that turned onlookers to stone. She wasn't always a monster. Originally a beautiful maiden, she was cursed by Athena after desecration in the goddess's temple. Her transformation from mortal to monster, and eventual death at the hands of Perseus, made her a complex figure, one that blended horror with tragedy. Medusa stood for dangerous beauty, divine wrath, and the thin line between victim and villain. The Minotaur, with the body of a man and the head of a bull, lived at the heart of the labyrinth in Crete, built by Daedalus for King Minos. It was the offspring of a queen and a sacred bull, a punishment for Minos' disrespect to Poseidon. The Athenians were forced to send youths to the labyrinth as tribute, where they were devoured by the creature until Theseus entered the maze, killed it, and escaped using Ariadne's thread. The Minotaur represented the brutal cost of pride and the horror of being trapped in a structure, both literal and societal, that devours the innocent. Centaurs, half man and half horse, embodied duality. Some, like Chiron, were wise and noble, teaching heroes like Achilles and Asclepius. Others were wild and violent, often shown in drunken brawls and assaults. This contrast made them symbols of the conflict between civilized order and animal impulse. They blurred the line between man and beast, showing what happens when instinct outweighs reason, or when it is wisely channeled. The Sphinx, though more commonly associated with Egypt, took on a unique role in Greek myth. Perched near Thebes, the Greek Sphinx was a female monster with the body of a lion, the wings of an eagle, and the head of a woman. She posed a riddle to travelers and killed those who failed to answer. Oedipus answered correctly, and the Sphinx threw herself to her death. The riddle, what walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 at noon and 3 in the evening, was more than a clever puzzle. It symbolized human life itself, and the Sphinx's defeat marked the ascendancy of reason and destiny over dread and doom. The Harpies were winged spirits, once depicted as wind deities but later twisted into hideous bird women who stole food and punished mortals. They were relentless, shrieking creatures sent by the gods to torment. In the myth of Phineus, they defiled his meals until the Boreads, winged sons of the north wind, chased them off. Harpies came to embody sudden misfortune, retribution, and the terror of being haunted by forces beyond control. Scylla, a sea monster with multiple heads and dog-like features, lived opposite Charybdis a deadly whirlpool. Together, they made passage through the Strait of Messina nearly impossible. Odysseus was forced to choose between them, sailing closer to Scylla and sacrificing a few men, or risking his entire ship to Charybdis. He chose the former, highlighting the grim reality that sometimes leadership means choosing the lesser evil. Scylla wasn't just a beast in the water, she was the embodiment of unavoidable loss. Cerberus, the three-headed guard dog of the underworld, prevented the dead from leaving and the living from entering. Loyal to Hades, the creature was terrifying but not malevolent. Heracles captured Cerberus alive as one of his labors, proving mastery over death's frontier. Cerberus symbolized the boundary between worlds, the inescapability of death, and the power of control over fearsome things that can't be truly destroyed. Lastly, the phoenix, though more prominent in later traditions, appeared in early Greek writings as a mythical bird that lived for centuries before bursting into flame and being reborn from its ashes. Associated with the sun, immortality and renewal, the phoenix stood apart from the others. It wasn't a monster to be slain, but a symbol of eternal return, of cyclical hope. In contrast to the deadly creatures of myth, the phoenix was aspirational, a myth of regeneration in a world full of destruction. Each of these creatures served a narrative function, obstacles for heroes, warnings to mortals, or allegories for deeper truths. They reflected the fears and values of a culture trying to understand a world filled with violence, beauty, unpredictability, and the divine. They remain legendary not just because they were strange, but because they helped the Greeks and us make sense of chaos.